The silver ships moved through space like hunting wolves. There were 12 of them, each one bigger than a city block. Their metal surfaces gleamed in the light of distant stars. Inside the lead ship, War Commander Thexval studied the small planet ahead. The planet looked peaceful, green and blue with white clouds drifting across its surface. Thexval had seen many worlds like this one. Most of them were now empty, their people gone or working in Velcan mines. This would be another. "Easy victory! Report!" Thexval said. His voice was cold and sharp. The crystals on his skin glowed blue as he spoke. All Velcans had these crystals. They made them strong and fast. They also let them share thoughts with other Velcans. "The human colony has 50,000 people," said Sub-Commander Krelnos. He was Thexval's best warrior. His crystals were darker blue, showing his many battles. "They call their city New Busan. No military ships, no defense platforms. Their weapons are very old." Thexval smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Perfect. How long to take the planet?" 2 hours, Commander. Maybe less." The other warriors in the room made sounds of approval. They had taken 47 worlds for the Velcan Empire. This would be 48. These humans would learn what happened when they lived on a world the Empire wanted. Thexval looked at the planet again. The humans had built their city near a large ocean. Their buildings were small and simple. Nothing like the great crystal towers on the Velcan home world. These creatures were clearly not advanced. "Sir," said another warrior, "we are getting a message from the planet." "Put it on the screen." A human face appeared. The man looked young, with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore simple clothes, not armor. Thexval wondered how such weak creatures had survived long enough to build cities. "This is Captain Ji-Ho Kim of the New Busan Defense Force," the human said. His voice was calm, too calm for someone about to die. "We know why you are here. We cannot fight your ships. We have no chance against your weapons." Thexval nodded. At least this human was smart enough to know the truth. "But we have one request," Ji-Ho continued. "Before you take our world, would you visit our cultural center? We would like to show you something." The Velcan warriors looked at each other. "Cultural center? What was that? You want to show us your weapons?" Thexval asked. "No," Ji-Ho said. "We want to show you our art." Art. Thexval knew this word, but it confused him. Velcans made things that were useful. Weapons, armor, ships. Why, would anyone make something that served no purpose? You waste our time with decorations? Thexval's crystals glowed brighter with anger. "Please," Ji-Ho said, "give us 1 hour. After that, you can do what you came to do. But maybe you will understand us better." Thexval was about to say no. Then he thought about it. In all his wars, he had never tried to understand the people he conquered. It might be interesting to see what these humans thought was important. Besides, they would all be dead or enslaved soon anyway. "Very well," Thexval said. 1 hour. Then you surrender completely." "Agreed," Ji-Ho said. The screen went dark. Sub-Commander Krelnos stepped forward. "Commander, this could be a trap." "What? Trap?" Thexval laughed. "Their strongest weapons cannot scratch our armor. Their fastest ships move like crawling insects. Let them show us their pretty pictures. It will be amusing." Thexval chose 5 warriors to come with him. All of them were veterans who had fought on many worlds. Their crystal armor could stop any human weapon. Their minds were linked through the neural network that connected all Velcan warriors. They were perfect soldiers. The shuttle flew down through the planet's atmosphere. Thexval looked out the window at the human city below. The buildings were made of simple materials like stone and metal. There were green spaces between them with strange, colorful objects. Trees, the humans called them. Useless things that served no purpose except to make the air cleaner. "Look at how they waste space," said Krelnos. "They could build twice as many useful buildings." "Humans are not logical," Thexval replied. "That is why they are weak." The shuttle landed in a large open area. Hundreds of humans had gathered to watch. They did not look afraid. Some of them even smiled and waved. This confused Thexval. When the Velkans came to a world, people usually ran or cried or begged for mercy. Jiho Kim walked toward them. He was not wearing armor or carrying weapons, just simple clothes and a calm expression. With him was an older man with gray hair. "Welcome to New Busan," Jiho said. "This is Minho Park. He runs our cultural center." Minho bowed slightly. "Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are honored to share our art with you." Thexval did not understand this politeness. These humans were about to lose everything. Why were they acting like hosts at a party? "Show us quickly," Thexval said. "We have a schedule to keep." Minho smiled. "Of course. Please follow me." They walked through the city streets. Humans stopped to stare at the Velkan warriors, but not with fear. They looked curious. Some children even tried to follow them until their parents called them back. The cultural center was a large building made of white stone. It had many windows and a curved roof. Nothing special about it. Thexval had seen grander buildings destroyed by his weapons. "This is where we keep our most precious things," Minho said as they approached the entrance. "Gold? Weapons? Technology?" asked Krelnos. "Better than that," Minho replied. "We keep the things that make us human." Thexval did not understand what that meant, but he would find out soon enough. Then he would take this weak planet and add it to the Empire, just like all the others. The entrance doors were made of clear material. Through them, Thexval could see colored shapes on the walls inside. He had no idea that in the next hour, everything he believed about strength and weakness would change forever. The doors opened and the Velkan warriors stepped inside. The first thing Thexval noticed was the silence. Not the empty silence of space or the tense quiet before battle. This was different. It felt full, like the air itself was holding its breath. The walls inside were painted white, but they were covered with squares of color, some big, some small. Thexval walked closer to one of them. It showed a field of yellow flowers under a blue sky. Nothing more. Just flowers and sky. "Why did someone make this?" he asked Minho. "Because it made them happy," Minho replied. Thexval stared at him. "Happy? That was not a reason to make things. You made things because they were useful. Because they helped you win battles or build cities or feed people. You did not make things just because they made you feel good." Sub-Commander Krelnos had stopped in front of another picture. This one showed an old woman sitting by a window. Light from outside touched her face. She looked sad, but also peaceful. "I do not understand," Krelnos said. His voice sounded strange, different from usual. "Who is this woman? Is she important?" A young human woman stepped forward. She had long black hair and wore simple clothes covered in spots of dried paint. "She was my grandmother," the woman said. "My name is So-Young Lee. I painted her picture after she died." "Why?" Krelnos asked. "Because I loved her," So-Young said. because I wanted to remember the way light looked on her face when she told me stories. Krelnos touched his chest. His crystal armor was glowing, but not with the usual steady blue light. The crystals were flickering, changing color slightly. Thexval had never seen anything like it. "Are you injured?" Thexval asked through their mental link. I do not know," Krelnos replied. "I feel strange." They moved deeper into the building. Each room held more pictures, more objects that served no purpose except to be looked at. There was a small statue of a child reaching up toward the sky. A picture of rain falling on a street. Another painting of people dancing at what looked like a celebration. "These humans are even stranger than I thought," whispered one of the warriors. "They spend time making copies of things that already exist." But Thexval noticed that his warriors were moving more slowly now. They stopped at each picture for longer than necessary. Their crystal armor kept flickering with odd colors. In the next room, they found something that made no sense at all. It was a large canvas covered in swirls of blue and green and white. It did not look like anything real, just colors mixed together in patterns. "What is this supposed to be?" Thexval demanded. So-young stepped up beside him. "It is the feeling of standing by the ocean during a storm," she said. "I painted it last year after watching the waves crash against the rocks for hours." "The feeling?" Thexval repeated. "You painted a feeling?" "Yes." Thexval looked at the painting again. The colors seemed to move, even though he knew they were just dried paint on cloth. He could almost hear the sound of waves, almost feel wind on his face. It was impossible, but somehow the meaningless swirls of color made him think of power and wildness and freedom. His own crystals began to flicker. "Commander," Krelnos said. His voice was very quiet. "Something is wrong with my neural implants." Thexval checked his own systems. The implants were working perfectly, but they were receiving data they had never been designed to process. Information that had no tactical value, no purpose in battle, just beauty. "It is affecting all of us," reported another warrior. "My armor systems are registering emotional responses I did not know I could have." Thexval felt anger rising in his chest. This was a trick. It had to be. These humans were doing something to their technology, some kind of weapon that attacked the mind instead of the body. "What are you doing to us?" he demanded, grabbing Minho by the arm, but Minho just looked sad. "Nothing," he said. "We are only showing you what we create when we are not fighting." "Wars," a new voice spoke from behind them. "Would you like to see the sculpture garden?" They turned to see a young woman with short hair and gentle eyes. She wore clothes that were also spotted with paint and dust. "I am Hyun Nam," she said. "I take care of the artworks here. There are more things to see if you have time." Thexval wanted to say no, wanted to leave this confusing place and return to his ship. But his warriors were all staring at the paintings like they had never seen anything interesting before. And the strange feelings in his own chest were getting stronger. "Show us," he said. They walked through more rooms, past pictures of children playing, past sculptures of people embracing, past a wall covered in small paintings that showed the same mountain at different times of day, in different seasons. The mountain looked completely different in each one, even though it was the same place. "Why make so many pictures of one mountain?" asked a warrior. "Because it is never really the same mountain," Hyun explained. "Light changes it. Weather changes it. Time changes everything, even mountains. Each painting captures a moment that will never come again. The warrior stared at the paintings for a long time. You are saying that temporary things are worth remembering? Yes, even if they serve no purpose. Beauty is its own purpose. Thexval felt his world shifting. Everything he had been taught about value and purpose was crumbling. These humans created things that had no function except to make existence more meaningful. They spent time and energy and skill on objects that would never help them win a battle or build an empire. And somehow, these useless things were more powerful than any weapon he had ever seen. The sculpture garden is this way, Hyon said, leading them toward a door that opened onto bright sunlight. Thexval followed, but his steps felt heavy. His crystal armor was no longer flickering. Now it was glowing with colors he had never seen before. His neural implants were overwhelmed, trying to process experiences they had no categories for. Behind him, his warriors moved like people walking through a dream. They had come here as conquerors, but something was happening to them. Something that had nothing to do with defeat or victory. They were learning what it meant to be touched by beauty, and it was changing them in ways their armor could not protect against. The sculpture garden was filled with stone and metal shapes that caught the sunlight, but Thexval barely noticed them. His attention was pulled toward a large building at the center of the garden. Soft sounds were coming from inside. Sounds, unlike anything he had ever heard. "What is that noise?" Sub-Commander Krelnos asked. His voice was different now, softer, less like a warrior and more like someone who was curious about the world. "Music," Hyon said. "Taehyung-oh is conducting practice for tonight's concert. Would you like to listen?" Thexval almost said no. They had already wasted too much time on these human decorations. But the sounds were pulling at something deep in his chest, something he did not understand. "For a few minutes," he said. They entered a large room with rows of seats facing a raised platform. On the platform, about 30 humans sat holding various objects. Some had long wooden things with strings. Others held metal tubes or round objects covered in tight skin. At the front, a man with silver hair moved his arms in flowing patterns. This was Taehyung-oh. As he moved, the humans with their objects created sounds that blended together, not like the harsh noises of battle or the mechanical hums of machines. These sounds were alive. Thexval found himself moving toward an empty seat. His warriors followed. They sat down without being told, which was strange. Velkin warriors always waited for orders. The music told a story without words. Thexval could somehow understand it, even though that should have been impossible. The sound spoke of a world far away, covered in green plants and blue water. They spoke of people who had to leave that world and travel to the stars. The music was sad for what was lost, but also hopeful for what could be found. "How do they make the sounds do that?" whispered one of his warriors. Thexval did not answer. He could not. His neural implants were sending error messages faster than he could read them. The battle computer in his armor kept trying to classify the music as either a threat or a non-threat, but it failed every time. The music was neither dangerous nor safe. It was something else entirely. On the platform, a young woman raised a wooden object to her shoulder. She drew a stick across strings, and a voice seemed to come from the wood. Not a human voice, but something that spoke directly to the soul. Her name was Soo-hyun Ko, though Thexval did not know this yet. The violin sang of loneliness and connection, of the vast emptiness between stars and the warmth of finding others in that darkness. Thexval felt water gathering in his eyes. This was impossible. Velkans did not cry. Their tear ducts had been modified centuries ago to prevent such weakness. But the water came anyway. Around him, his warriors were experiencing the same impossible thing. Krelnos was gripping the arms of his seat so hard the metal was bending. His crystal armor was now glowing with colors that had no names in the Velkan language. "Sir," another warrior whispered through their mental link, "my systems are failing. I cannot maintain battle readiness." "Mine too," came another voice. "The music is interfering with my combat protocols." Thexval tried to give orders, but found he could not speak. The music had wrapped around his thoughts like a gentle hand, holding them still. On the platform, more instruments joined the song. Deep sounds that seemed to come from the earth itself. High sounds that danced like light on water. The conductor, Tai Hyung, moved his arms like he was painting with invisible brushes. Each gesture brought new voices into the music. The whole room filled with sound that had no purpose except to be beautiful. This was what confused Thexval most. Velkans made sounds for communication, for warnings, for victory cries. But these humans were making sounds that served no function at all. They were not trying to share information or coordinate attacks. They were creating beauty for its own sake, and somehow this useless beauty was more powerful than any weapon. The music grew louder and more complex. Thexval could hear individual voices within the larger song, a flute that laughed like a child, drums that beat like a strong heart, strings that whispered secrets in languages that had no words. "Why do they do this?" Krelnos asked. Not through the mental link, but with his actual voice. Speaking out loud during music was probably rude, but he could not help himself. An old, human man sitting nearby turned around. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Because it makes us more than we were," he said quietly. "Because when we create beauty together, we become something larger than ourselves." Thexval understood then. This was not just humans making pleasant sounds. This was a group of individuals choosing to blend their separate voices into something unified, something that could only exist when they worked together in perfect harmony. It was like the Velkan neural network, but voluntary. And instead of sharing battle plans or tactical information, they were sharing pure emotion, pure beauty. The music reached a peak, with all the instruments playing together in a moment of perfect unity. Then it began to fade, like the memory of a wonderful dream. The last notes hung in the air for a long moment before disappearing into silence. Thexval realized he was breathing hard. His heart was racing as if he had just finished a difficult battle, but this was not the exhaustion of war. This was something else. Something that made him feel more alive than he had ever felt before. Around the room, humans were putting their instruments away and talking quietly among themselves. Some of them noticed the Velkan warriors and nodded politely. No one seemed afraid or angry. They just looked content. "That was just practice," Hyan said softly. "Tonight they will perform the full concert for the whole city." Thexval stood up slowly. His legs felt weak, as if the music had drained all his strength. But at the same time, he felt more powerful than ever. Not the power to destroy, but the power to understand something completely new. "We should go," he said to his warriors. But his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, sir," they replied. But none of them moved. On the platform, Soo-hyun Ko was cleaning her violin. She looked up and saw the Velkan warriors watching her. Instead of fear, her face showed curiosity. She walked over to them, carrying her instrument. "Did you enjoy the music?" she asked. Thexval tried to find words. In all his centuries of life, he had conquered planets and commanded fleets and won battles that would be remembered forever. But he had never been asked if he enjoyed something. "I do not understand what happened," he admitted. Soo-hyun smiled. "Music is hard to understand with your mind. You have to understand it with your heart." She raised the violin and played a single, pure note. The sound seemed to reach inside Thexval's chest and touch something he had never known was there. Something that had been waiting all his life to be awakened. For the first time in his warrior existence, Thexval understood that there were things more important than victory. Outside in the sculpture garden, Thexval felt like he was walking through a different world. The sunlight seemed brighter. The air smelled of growing things he had never noticed before. His crystal armor, which had always felt like a second skin, now felt heavy and awkward. "This way," Hyun said, leading them along a path between tall sculptures. The sculptures were nothing like Velkin art. Velkins carved victory monuments and weapon displays. These human creations showed ordinary, people doing ordinary things, a mother holding a child, an old man feeding birds, two friends laughing together. "Why make statues of random people?" asked one of the warriors. "Because every person matters," Hyun replied. "Because normal moments can be just as important as great events." They stopped before the largest sculpture in the garden. It stood twice as tall as a Velkin warrior, made from dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The sculpture showed several human figures reaching upward with their arms, but something invisible seemed to be pulling them down. Their faces showed pain, but also determination, hope mixed with sorrow. A woman sat on a bench nearby, sketching the sculpture with quick movements of her hand. She had short gray hair and clothes stained with metal dust. When she saw them approaching, she stood and bowed slightly. "I am Jisoo. Hey," she said. "I made this piece." Thexval stared at the sculpture. The longer he looked, the more he saw. The figures were not just being pulled down by invisible weight, they were also lifting each other up, supporting one another even as they struggled. "What does it mean?" Sub-Commander Krelnos asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. "It is called the weight of sorrow," Jisoo explained. "It shows how humans carry pain, but also how we help each other bear it." Krelnos moved closer to the sculpture. He reached out as if to touch it, then stopped. "The figures are in pain, but they have not given up." "No," Jisoo said. "Pain is part of being alive, but so is hope. So is love. This sculpture tries to show that even when life is hard, it is still worth living." Thexval felt something crack inside his chest, not his armor, but something deeper, something that had been locked away for so long he had forgotten it existed. "I do not understand," he said, and his voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Why would you create something that shows suffering? Why not show victory? Triumph?" Jisoo studied his face for a long moment. "May I ask you something?" Thexval nodded. "In all your victories, in all your conquests, have you ever felt truly satisfied?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He thought of all the worlds he had taken, all the battles he had won, all the enemies he had defeated, and he realized that each victory had felt empty almost as soon as it was achieved. There was always another planet to conquer, another enemy to fight. "No," he admitted. "I have not." "That is because victory over others cannot fill the emptiness inside," Jisoo said gently. Only creating something meaningful can do that. Only adding beauty to the universe instead of taking things away. Another warrior stepped forward. This was Veltar, one of the youngest in Thexval's group. But how can making art be more satisfying than winning battles? Jisoo smiled. Because when you win a battle, you prove you are stronger than someone else. But when you create art, you prove that consciousness itself has value. You prove that the universe is better because thinking beings exist in it. She gestured toward the sculpture. This took me 3 years to make. Every day I came here and worked on it, shaping the metal, adjusting the poses, trying to capture the exact emotion I wanted to show. It was hard work, frustrating work. Sometimes I wanted to give up. Why did you not give up? Veltar asked. Because every day I worked on it, I felt more alive, more connected to something important. When I finally finished, I had not just made a sculpture. I had made myself into someone who could create beauty from nothing. Thexval walked around the sculpture, seeing it from different angles. Each view showed him something new. From one side, the figures looked defeated. From another, they looked defiant. From the back, they seemed to be dancing despite their burden. You are saying that making this gave your life meaning? He asked. Yes. More meaning than conquering worlds. Jisoo looked confused. I have never conquered worlds, but I cannot imagine that destroying things could give as much meaning as creating them. Thexval's neural implants were sending more error messages. His tactical systems could not process this conversation. How could making useless objects be more valuable than expanding an empire? But his heart understood what his mind could not. Standing here in this garden, surrounded by humans who had spent their lives creating beauty for no reason except that beauty was good, he felt something he had never experienced before. He felt peace. Commander, Krelno said through their mental link, I am receiving reports from the fleet. They want to know when we will begin the invasion. Thexval looked up at his ships, still waiting in orbit. 12 vessels filled with weapons and warriors, ready to destroy this small, peaceful city, ready to turn all of this beauty into rubble and ash. The thought made him feel sick. Tell them to wait, he replied. Sir? How long should they wait? Thexval did not answer. He was staring at the sculpture again, trying to understand how metal and skill and time could be transformed into something that spoke directly to the soul. Jisoo, he said finally, you spent 3 years making this. What did you think about? While you worked? I thought about everyone who would see it, she replied. I thought about how it might make them feel less alone in their own struggles. I thought about adding something to the world that was not there before. You made it for strangers? I made it for anyone who needed to see it. Thexval felt the last of his certainties crumble. This human had spent 3 years of her life creating something for people she would never meet. Not for profit or glory or conquest, but simply because she believed the universe should contain more beauty. It was the most selfless act he had ever encountered, and the most powerful. Jisoo, he said quietly, would you teach me how to make something like this? The question surprised him as much as it surprised her. He was a warrior, a conqueror. The idea of creating instead of destroying was alien to everything he had been taught. But for the first time in his long life, Thexval wanted to make something that would outlast him. Something that would make the universe a little more beautiful, instead of a little more broken. Jisoo smiled, and her smile was brighter than any star. Thexval stood in the center of New Busan's main square as the sun began to set. Around him, children played with colored chalk. drawing pictures on the stone ground. Simple pictures of flowers and houses and smiling faces. Pictures that would wash away with the next rain, but the children drew them anyway. One small girl with pigtails had drawn what looked like a rainbow, but with too many colors in the wrong order. She worked on it with intense concentration, as if it was the most important thing in the universe. "Why do you draw that?" Thexval asked, kneeling down beside her. The girl looked up at him with wide eyes. She was not afraid of his crystal armor or his alien appearance. To her, he was just another person interested in her art. "Because rainbows are pretty," she said simply. "And when I draw pretty things, I feel happy inside." Such a simple answer. But it contained more wisdom than all the military strategies. Thexval had studied in his centuries of life. Sub-Commander Krelnos approached, his footsteps slower than usual. "Commander, the fleet is requesting orders." Thexval stood up, but his eyes remained on the child's drawing. Around the square, more children were creating their temporary masterpieces. Parents watched with patient smiles. No one seemed worried that the art would not last. They were happy just to create it. "Open a channel to all ships," Thexval said. "Yes, sir." The communication device activated, connecting him to the 12 warships overhead. Hundreds of Velkan warriors waited for his command to begin the attack. "This is War Commander Thexval," he said. His voice carried across space to every ship in the fleet. "Mission parameters have changed." Confused murmurs came through the channel. Mission parameters never changed. The Empire's orders were always absolute. "Sir," came the voice of Ship Captain Morven. "Are you requesting reinforcements?" "No," Thexval said. "I am requesting teachers." Silence. Complete silence from the fleet. "Sir, please repeat your last transmission," Morven said carefully. Thexval looked around the square again, at the humans going about their peaceful evening activities, at his own warriors, who were standing among the humans instead of preparing for battle, at the children who had returned to their chalk drawings, completely unaware that an invasion fleet waited overhead. "We are not conquerors here," Thexval said. "We are students." "Commander, I do not understand," came another voice. "Students of what?" "Students of what it means to be truly alive." Through the mental link that connected all Velkan warriors, Thexval could feel the confusion of his fleet, but he could also feel something else: curiosity. His warriors in orbit were receiving the emotional broadcasts from the landing party. They were experiencing secondhand the strange new feelings that art could create. Captain Jiho Kim walked across the square toward them. With him was an older man with kind eyes and administrative clothes. "Commander Thexval," Jiho said. "This is Minguk Jung, our colony administrator. He has a proposal for you." Minguk stepped forward. Unlike most humans Thexval had met, this one did not seem awed by Velkan technology or frightened by their reputation. He looked like someone who was used to solving problems. "Commander," Minguk said, "your hour is almost over, but before you make your final decision, I want to offer you something." "What?" "A choice. You can take our world as you planned. But if you do, you will destroy something that can never be replaced. Not just our lives, but our capacity to create beauty. Our ability to make meaning from chaos." Thexval waited for him to continue. "Or," Minguk said, "you can stay and learn. We will teach you what we know about art and music and literature, about creating instead of destroying, about finding purpose in beauty rather than conquest." "You would teach us?" Krelnos asked. even though we came to conquer you. Especially because you came to conquer us, Minguk replied. If we can turn warriors into artists, imagine what we could accomplish together. Through the fleet channel, Ship Captain Morven's voice crackled with static. Commander, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from your location. Are you under attack? Thexval almost laughed. Under attack. Yes, they were under attack, but not from weapons or soldiers. They were under attack from ideas they had never considered, from possibilities they had never imagined. Negative, he said into the communicator. We are experiencing cultural exchange. Sir? Thexval made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All ships begin landing operations, but not for invasion, for immigration. Sir, please clarify. Dock at the spaceport. Send down anyone who wants to learn something new. We are not taking this world. We are joining it. The silence that followed was broken by the voice of a young Velkin pilot. Permission to request landing clearance, sir. Granted. Me too, came another voice. And me. Soon, the channel was filled with requests from warriors who had spent their lives fighting, but had never learned to create. Warriors who had felt the emotional echoes from the surface and wanted to experience beauty for themselves. Minguk smiled. We will need to build more housing, and art studios, and music rooms. We can help with construction, Krelnos offered. Velkins are good at building things. Yes, said So-Young Lee, who had been listening nearby. But this time you can build something beautiful instead of something functional. Can we build both? Asked Veltar. Something that works and is also beautiful? That, said Jisoo Bey, is the highest form of art. As the first Velkin ships began their descent to the planet's surface, Thexaval knelt down beside the little girl with the rainbow drawing again. She had added more colors now, and some kind of creature with too many legs and a smiling face. What is that? He asked, pointing to the creature. It is a happiness monster, she said matter-of-factly. It eats sad feelings and poops out rainbows. Thexaval stared at the drawing. In all his military training, he had never encountered a happiness monster. No tactical manual had ever mentioned the strategic value of creatures that turned sadness into beauty. But somehow he understood exactly what the child meant. Could you teach me to draw a happiness monster? He asked. The girl handed him a piece of chalk. It is easy, she said. You just have to remember what happy feels like, and then draw that. As Thexval began his first attempt at creating something beautiful, ships continued to land around the city. Warriors who had come to destroy were staying to learn. The Velkin. Empire's expansion had stopped, not because they had been defeated, but because they had discovered something better than conquest. They had discovered the courage to create meaning in an indifferent universe. And in that discovery, they found a strength that no weapon could match. The little girl watched Thexval's awkward attempts at drawing and giggled. You are not very good at this yet, she said. No, Thexval agreed, smiling for perhaps the first time in his long life. But I am learning. Above them, the stars came out one by one, and the galaxy became a little more beautiful.